Oxford from the inside. The good, the bad, but always the truth.
Hello, and welcome to episode 141 of Oxford from the Inside, the good, the bad, but always the truth. We've got a bit of a special episode lined up for you today. Instead of like an interview, it's going to be a bit more of a panel discussion, and more specifically about everything about colleges. So, some of you watching or listening to us today might be aware that at Oxford, you're not only part of the university, but you're also a member of a college. And choosing colleges can initially seem as like a quite a daunting choice when you're first making the application. So we thought we'd come on and kind of discuss our different colleges and kind of pros, cons, what makes them different. Although each college has its own environment, there are things that links them. So yeah, we'll get into that over the course of the discussion. So I'm Oriel.
Right, I'm at Catz.
And I'm at Merton.
Cool. So I guess so all three of us applied to the college that we eventually ended up at. So I guess if you guys want to talk about what made you pick Catz and Merton respectively.
Yeah, so I picked Catz because I was really lucky and I was able to actually go and visit the college. Because I was on Opportunity Oxford, which is like a sort of scheme thing, and I was able to like go and visit my college during that. And I just really liked the vibe. A lot of, I mean, I don't know how good this is, but a lot of my decisions on like say like schools or like things that I want to do is like based on a specific sort of vibe and like feeling. And yeah, I just kind of thought Catz was like it was very welcoming and the people were like really lovely as well. So that helped. And then also I study French and Spanish and St. Cat's is one of the best colleges for modern languages. It's sort of been said anyway, but I wouldn't be biased in any way whatsoever, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they all sound like good reasons. I think a lot of it is kind of being able to go on those open days. And it's really great that we've gone back into in-person open days now. And just being able to like, yeah, as you say, get the vibe of the college. I think that's the same thing I had when I visited Oriel. It's very pretty. It's not the biggest college, but all the buildings are really nice, and it is a welcoming environment. So yeah. How about you, Grace?
My process of choosing Merton was really random. I literally like looked at, the list on the University of Oxford website of like all the colleges in alphabetical order. I went down and then like picked the one that sounded the nicest. And there was like no rhyme or reason behind it. And then after I decided I was gonna go to Merton because like I like gonna apply to Merton even, then I started looking into like all the stuff and found out like I actually made quite a good choice. Like we get accommodation for all 3 years. We get kitchen access for all 3 years. We have quite a central location, and like the college subsidizes a lot of things. Like they're currently subsidizing my Spanish language classes. So I think like factors like that is really important to consider.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point as well. There's a lot of information on the university website and also the college website about stuff that you've mentioned, like facilities, whether colleges provide accommodation for all years of your undergraduate degree, or whether you'll have to rent privately for a year. The most important choice decision or like the criteria is whether it offers your course, particularly if you're applying for a niche course like perhaps philosophy and linguistics, which isn't offered by all the colleges. That kind of played a part in my choice because I do French and linguistics. Linguistics is a bit more of a niche course, so it's not offered by all the colleges. So that might help to kind of narrow it down in the first place. Um, and yeah, Grace, you also mentioned the idea of having a central location. And yeah, I'd be interested, Georgia, did location like play a part in your decision to apply to Catz?
Not really, because I know where my lectures are. My lectures are in like the Taylorian Library, or they're in Wellington Square, which is quite far from Catz. But like as I said before, I really liked the vibe of Catz, so it didn't really matter to me too much of like how far I was from like the library or whatever. A lot of my classes, at least in first year, were at college anyway. So that didn't really affect me that much, or if they weren't, they were in Wadham, which isn't that far from Catz really. So distance didn't really matter to me. And also I guess what helps is if I like want to study, if I don't want to study in my room, we have like the law faculty library, which is literally just down the street. So it's easy that way.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think it's worth bearing in mind that Oxford must be one of the only places where a 20-minute walk is considered a trek. Um, Honestly, I feel like the city isn't that big. I live in Cowley, and I might sometimes have lectures or classes in Wellington Square, which is probably considered to be the other side of the university campus or where the buildings are. But yeah, if you have a bike, a lot of people cycle in Oxford, so it makes places a lot more accessible. So yeah, it might be worth considering if you're thinking about a more central location versus one which is a bit further out. But I guess on the flip side, the central locations might end up being a bit more touristy. Is that something that you've noticed, Grace?
Yeah, I think definitely along Merton Street, like there's like so many colleges, like Merton, Uni of Corpus, Christchurch, and like along the street, I get so many like I hear so many like tourist groups like be like, oh, this is Merton, this is where fun goes to die, and I'm like, what? But yeah, definitely in terms of Christchurch, I can see like it being really crowded.
Yeah, particularly the ones where, they've become famous because of, for example, Christchurch is famous for the Harry Potter Hall. So that's obviously a really big tourist attraction. One of the things I do like about Oriel is that it is very central. It's actually like just off Merton Street, but at the same time, it doesn't seem to get as many tourists. It's a little bit hidden away. So in some senses, you're getting the best of both worlds, particularly if you live on the college site. Um, yeah, I think Gracie mentioned something about like accommodation and the fact that you got kitchen facilities for all 3 years at Merton. I'd be interested to hear about like what your accommodation's like and whether that differs between the colleges as well.
Yeah, my comm, like I think personally, like Merton and comm is quite good for all 3 years. Um, like currently I'm living on Holywell Street, and that's like quite central as well, and it's closer to the law faculty, which is really good because I study law. Um, yeah, and then I think the rooms themselves are quite good. They have like good like size, like furniture, that kind of stuff. And then in terms of like kitchen access, I think that differs like because you kind of like get randomly assigned to a room and like a building when you're in when you're a fresher, and then you kind of do the same thing when you're a second year, but it's kind of like balloted, so you have somewhat of a choice on like what kitchen you want to use and like after doing a tour and stuff. But at least for the first year, my kitchen access was like very strange. Like I think it's kind of a stretch to call it kitchen access because it was one kitchen in the basement between 30 people. Um, but some people um like got randomly assigned to buildings where they were sharing a kitchen with like 6 people or something. And it was like a bigger kitchen. So yeah, but you definitely have access. It's just like sometimes even if you do have access, you still want to eat in hall, especially because Merton subsidizes hall a lot. So we have um like lunches for like £4 something, and it's like a buffet, and dinners and formals for like £6 or a bit less than £6. So I think prices are quite good, even if you don't want to cook for yourself.
Cool. And yeah, I think it's worth mentioning that each college will have a hall and the type of like provisions the hall provides differs between the colleges. So some colleges might have what we call formal, so you're like a three-course sit-down meal where you might have to wear a more formal attire. They might have that a bit more often. So at Oriel, for example, where I am, we do it 6 times a week. We're quite a traditional college, and formal hall is an important tradition for the people here. And yeah, you have to wear your special gown and formal attire. And yeah, it's a nice chance to catch up with friends. And sometimes your tutors are there as well, which is really nice. But yeah, so each college will have like a college hall and also the library. So if you don't want to work in your room, you can always go to your college library, and then there are so many libraries dotted around Oxford as well, so you can go to those as well. Georgia, I know the accommodation situation at Catz isn't the most ideal at the moment, but maybe can you talk about what it was like last year?
So last year I was in Old Quad in first year, and usually for everyone, um like it's not en suite, you like share a bathroom, and the odd person will like get lucky and have a sink in their room. Because I have a disability, I had an ensuite room, so I was very lucky with regards to that. Um but yeah, it's in Old Quad. The rooms aren't actually too bad. They're quite like spacious, but then it also does depend on like the staircase and like what room you get. It's kind of just like luck of the draw, really. Then second year accommodation, everyone gets an ensuite, which is great.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I think there's this common link across the colleges that freshers are kind of randomly assigned a room. You might get some choice, perhaps after your offer is confirmed and before you come to Oxford. But overall, there's a bit less choice. So it's maybe yeah, a bit more of a ballot or a lottery in that sense. But then once you get to second year and subsequent years, many colleges will hold a room ballot. So that way you get a bit more choice about what room you want to live in for the next year. So yeah, once again, like the open days are a really good opportunity to have a look at freshers accommodation in a college you might be interested in. But yeah, I think overall I'd say the accommodation at Oxford is pretty good across all the colleges. It is quite heavily subsidized, so it's worth bearing in mind that it's probably cheaper to live in college than it would be to rent privately for the whole year. On the flip side, I think in most colleges, you can tell me if this is a case for you too, but in most colleges, you do have to move your stuff out at the end of every term, which, yeah, can be a little bit of a pain, but it teaches you to pack lightly. So,
Yeah, that's true. For me as well, because I don't like live in England permanently. Because I'm from Northern Ireland. So I have to like pack all of my stuff up, either like put it in storage, or take everything back home. So I'm going to try and see if college can like reimburse me, but with the situation at the minute, it's probably not ideal. Yeah.
yeah, fair. How about you, Grace? You have to move your stuff out at the end of every term.
Yeah, we do. And it's a bit of a pain because we don't really like have the best kind of like in terms of like staircases and stuff. I don't think it's very like good for carrying so many boxes up and down like every 8 weeks. But we do get like I think this also differs on college, like on how much storage you actually get. But Merton JCR organizes 2 boxes per person for free, and then if you want to store any more, you have to pay obviously. But like I think the 2 boxes like practically gets you in the like safe zone of like you can store all your like pots and pans and stuff you won't need at home. So you don't have to like lug your entire life like back and forth. Although I think in some colleges that might still be the case.
Yeah, I think that's a really good initiative, actually, just letting people store at least some stuff during the year. And then would you have to take it all back with you over the summer, over the long back?
Yeah, you do have to take it all back.
Okay. Yeah, but no, that seems like a pretty good solution that the Merton JCR have found. So perhaps particularly for international students or students who don't reside on the mainland, that would be really helpful. Because even if, for example, if you come from like the north of Scotland, it might take you longer to get home than it does for people on the continent. Just because, you know, if you're driving all the way up versus you're taking quite a short flight. Um, so yeah, that's probably one of the big quirks about Oxford, the fact that, you know, you have these really short terms, but you're only staying in college for those terms, and then you do have to like vacate your room between the terms. Um, but yeah, I think we've covered quite a lot of stuff there. Is there anything else you want to add about your colleges? Maybe um, one good thing and one drawback about your college?
One good thing about Catz, I honestly think it's the people that make the college. I mean, it's really good for modern languages as well, and like all of the tutors are really lovely. The only drawback I can really think of, but besides the rack situation, is how far out it is. But then that also just does depend on what you're studying. For some people, it's a problem, for others, it isn't. I mean, even though my lectures and things would be quite far away, it's not really that much of an issue for me, but then it just does depend on the person.
Cool. And how about you, Grace?
Um, I think one good thing about Merton is that like a lot of things, because it is quite a wealthy college, so like it is willing to give you money if you ask for it. Like I don't know like how to describe it, but for example, if you take a language class, then they'll just like send out so many reminders being like, we can reimburse you, we can reimburse you. And we're like, yes, okay. And like you can do multiple language classes and they'll reimburse you for all of it. There's like travel grants and things like that. And then there's like random, but there's obviously the hardship fund that I'm sure most colleges have. Um, and I just really like our food. Like our lunches especially, they're so popular because you get a main and then on the same like plate you have your like you can scoop your own sides however much you want, and then you can scoop your own salad, and then you have like a buffet of yogurt, soup, fruit, like more salad, and literally for like 4.50 or something, whatever it is such a good deal. So I think like the good thing is that it has a lot of money that it puts into like the welfare of the students, I guess. So yeah, I think that's also really important to consider. Um, one drawback.
Or maybe something that surprised you when you first joined?
Oh, I think what surprised me was like how nice the people are, because for like the reputation Merton has, I was expecting people to be like really like pretentious and like whatever, but everyone was really down to earth. And I think Merton has like this has just turned into another like good thing about Merton kind of thing. But yeah, we have like a really tight knit community. So I think like I guess like on the flip side of it, it means that you don't really need to like go out of your way to like make friends with people from the wider university, which might make your experience a little bit more limited. But I think the people at Merton are very slay.
Yeah, I can only echo what you said about the people at the colleges. I think one point to bear in mind is, you know, it is worth having a think about the college you want to apply to, uh, the facilities they might provide, things like that. But for the vast majority of people, no matter what college you end up at, you're happy and you find your people. And yeah, it is very much like the community that makes the college. Yeah, I think talk about Oriel. I really like the size and location. It's quite small, so it does mean you get to know not just people in your year, but people in other years. And there's a lot of like college societies that help with that. And yeah, the location in center of town, but not in like the most touristy areas, is also really nice. On the flip side, because it's like just off the high street, it doesn't have the extensive gardens that a college like Worcester might have, or the sports facilities like attached right onto it. So, if you want to go do sport, there is like a college gym on site, but all the sports facilities are a bit further out in Cowley and Iffley. So yeah, in that way, the parts of the college aren't like entirely connected. But I mean, for me, that's not too much of a problem. So yeah, I think it does kind of depend on the person, really. But yeah, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. Thank you so much to the both of you for coming on and talking about your experiences. I'm sure everyone will have found that really useful. And thank you to our followers for listening to this podcast or watching this YouTube video. Remember to follow us on Instagram at Oxford from the Inside for regular updates on our new content. I hope you all stay safe and well, and until next time, bye bye.
Bye.